Hanna Shelest, Senior Researcher at the National Institute for Strategic Studies, Ukraine.
Hanna, it's wonderful that you've come to the Beyond Borders Festival. Perhaps you could tell us a little bit about how you came to be here for the festival this weekend and what you've been talking about.
You know, that's really interesting because it seems like connections of the life in the good meaning of these words, they are bringing you the proper places. And it's happened that 2 years ago I met the wonderful people who later for us, but earlier for the Scotland, organized this wonderful festival, and that is Mark Miller, thanks to the John Smith Fellowship. So as a result, those connections that we established 2 years ago, those ties between us, between the Trackway and the Ukrainian fellows, they're still alive, and it can be just greetings to the holidays or the ability to participate in such a wonderful event. And because festival is not only just to speak about something, but really to raise some important questions which are now on agenda, on the world agenda, that can be interesting for all people. Doesn't matter what are you doing in your life. So definitely Ukrainian crisis became one of these topics. We would prefer to speak about some wonderful trips to Amazon with the other writers, but what we can do if our country is now on the news, it would be really fantastic to speak with the people, try to explain what was going on. And thanks to Beyond Borders that they felt this moment and they invited us to have a possibility to just to tell our stories, because you can't tell the truth or you can't tell the whole story. It's still going on, but at least our stories, how we see it, how we feel, and what to think about the future.
And what was your own experience of the Euromaidan Revolution?
You know, for me it was the big patch, because I saw it from three sides. I saw it from being at the Maidan at the very beginning, and when we couldn't expect what can it be, it was still like just I don't know, explosions of emotions, of the aspirations of the people in the beginning of December, when I was organizing the parallel conference to OSCE, and we couldn't expect that something bad happened. Then it was at the New Year night when something like 300,000 people were singing anthem, and it was a fantastic feeling of some unity of the country, of people. And again, we couldn't expect anything bad. I also watched all these events from my own town, which is 500 kilometers from Kiev, and which is totally not nationalistic or something like this. So you couldn't expect that this city can erupt one day and really show that we're also part of Ukraine. We also would like some changes. So it was it was not like of outsider, but it was something that on some distance you can see what is going on there. And the third window, let's say, via which I was voting, that I needed to leave the country because of work for 4 months. And being in Italy with a lot of military people from around the world, and I had an ability to see it by their eyes, how they understand the situation, and every day trying to explain what's going on, feeling their support, but at the same time total uncertainty, because they couldn't expect that something can happen just in the middle of Europe. And these three perspectives, they really allowed me to see the situation maybe a little bit less emotional, but at the same time less objective. Because you can't be objective being inside, and you can't stay objective when people are asking you questions and you understand that it is not some conflict 1,000 kilometers from your house, but there is something happening here, and you all the time have this duality of your opinions.
And as a professional analyst of geopolitics, using that little bit of distance that you describe, what do you think is going to happen now in Ukraine, in the east and also in Crimea?
You know, that's how I told during the Beyond Borders Festival, that as an analyst, unfortunately, you're a pessimist. As a citizen, you would like to be an optimist. And I'm balancing between these. Pessimists, not because there are no exit, but because unfortunately you see all bad scenarios, and that is still not a stalemate. It's still not that moment after which everything should be better, because you still see potential how to worsen the situation, both from inside and from outside. Definitely, we hope that we will be able to finish it. We need the external support, and that is not the support that many think that you need the boots on the ground. We don't need boots on the ground. The real diplomatic support means much more in this situation because we have enough brave people, and our army is now is really the birth of the new army when you really feel what it means to be the soldier and to secure your own land. That's much more important than the good weapons sometimes. And we don't want to use these weapons. That is the most important. Probably our army and our police will be the first people to say we are ready to be back home. We are ready to sign a ceasefire because they understand what it means, the death. Unfortunately, many people who are feeling the situation, they never touch the death. They never touch the real sorrow of the people on the ground. And for them, that is just, okay, let's send additional humanitarian convoy. Will it change the situation? We're playing the games. So I really hope that negotiations that are expected and the NATO summit maybe will send the proper signals. But I understand that many of the things that should be changed, they should be changed from inside of Russia. That should be some kind of strong people inside of the country who will understand that it can't be like this, that Ukrainians are not enemies, that there is no sense to fuel the conflict, and they need to trigger the situation that the Kremlin will change their position toward the eastern Ukraine. And Crimea, I hope that in 5 years we will be able to speak again about Crimea as a part of Ukraine. Because for me to say that it is Russian, it's not nationalistic, but I'm always joking, let's give it to Greeks or to Romans. They owned it much longer. So for me, like who, in the long history of the Crimea, who owned it for 50 years is not the question. Much more important what people are thinking there and what a connection, what is better for people, because what you have now, you totally don't have any connections, you don't have any productions. So even after the World War II, it was not Russia who reconstructed the whole Crimea. It was Ukraine who did it because it is even geographically, logically. That's why it's quite strange for us now to say that this part never been or will never be part of Ukraine.
Now, I know you work as a journalist, and you were asked by Ukrainian publications when you were coming over to look at some of the things that were going on at the festival. What is most of interest about the festival Scotland right now to Ukrainians?
Definitely the Scottish referendum. That's out of the question. And the reason for this that we really need to see both what does mean devolution. Is it an option or is it the first step for the separation? Because we really try to see some best practices for the decentralization of the country now. And not only for ourselves, but we have Moldova and Transnistria as our immediate neighbors, and we are deeply involved as the mediators. So we see for the Scotland also, is it possible as a suggestion for them as well, because our stability depends on them. But at the same time, we need to see and to show to the world community, look, that is the difference, how the referendum was organized in Crimea and how in Scotland. Many people were very cynical, joking like, hey, the Scottish are so stupid, they should learn from Crimeans how to organize the referendum in 2 weeks, not in 2 years. Why you need all this time and money? It's bad joke, I know, but that's reality, that we need to show how it can be different. Yeah, territorial integrity of the state is important, but if people would like, no problem. That is procedures, that is transparency, that is all legislative process, that is the process of the public discussion, that is the transitional process after it. So that is stages which are very logical and very important, and you can't just decide, okay, let's print on the Xerox our bulletins and have referendum in 2 weeks and now we're independent. And it seems to me it will be extremely important to show and to present this difference. So for many people there will not be question, was it real will of the people or not.
So apart from the referendum, what will you take back to Ukraine from this weekend in the borders?
Probably several things. First, that sometimes you need not the academic conferences or some serious workshops to raise the important questions. And in such an atmosphere, I can't say relaxed, because it was not relaxed, it was very intense. But in the atmosphere when you can forget about everything. You can be just in the wonderful environment, and you can open your mind and not be afraid to raise the questions, not be passive. Because I understand that people who were sitting in the tent, they were not professionals, many of them.
Mm-hmm.
They were just readers, people who came maybe more for the women's rights session, and then suddenly they appeared on the session about the rule of law. And they were the same interested in it. They were open for something new. And I really want that something like this would be possible in Ukraine, because it's difficult to imagine people of certain age coming just to listen to something interesting on their weekends. When can they spend this time, maybe just with a TV or something? And here, I don't know, 200 people, how many we had, and the room was full, and every session it was more and more people coming. And it was really wonderful feeling that if these people are not ignorant, if these people are not passive, if these people are really interested in what's going on, it probably will be much easier to solve some of the problems, because you always feel the backup of those who are in your country when you raise the important world issues.
Hanna, thank you very much.
Thank you.